Hey everyone. Um, Thanks for joining. We're going to give everyone a few minutes, maybe not a few minutes, but a few more seconds to filter in. Looks like some few people are still filtering in. So just bear with me here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Um, so we're going to be covering some foundations of AI, really designed for those of you who, you know what AI is. You don't know where to start. You're just trying to figure it out, and really just trying to provide some very foundational information about AI and the options available. And also, one of those options will be a class that we offer, a training class we offer that will get you not just up and running, but up and really, really effectively using AI. So I'll be running through all that. I really want this to be interactive. So please, any questions you have, please do drop them into chat, and I will do the best I can to answer them as soon as as soon as I can within the stream. Also, a recording of this will be available. Some of the slides are a bit dense, so if you want to be able to reference back and look at the slides, you can go and watch the video and get access to that content. So again, please jump in with any comments or questions, and I will get answers out to you as soon as possible after that. So the agenda for today's session is as follows. I'm actually going to drop off as well over here so that you can see the content a little bit bigger. So today's agenda, we're going to spend a few minutes on introductions, and then we'll talk about why using AI makes sense, what situationally when it works, how to think about AI. It's not your standard tech platform, so we'll talk a little bit about that. I'll give you an overview of our training program, and I'll move through that really quickly, but I want you to leave here understanding what's available. And then I'll do an overview of an AI interface, right? We'll focus on ChatGPT because it's the most common AI vendor. So I'll spend a while going through that, going through its settings, giving you some good information if you're going to set up an account, just so you have that. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. So I'm going to jump in. Like I said, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. So for introductions, my name is Mark Pizzoli. I'm a partner at Journey Alliance. I'm also a partner at 7 Stages of Growth. Historically, Journey is a business coaching, business advisory company. All of our clients were clamoring for AI. I happen to have 20 plus years of technology leadership and operations leadership experience, which is AI is really right at the intersection of those two areas. So I went out and it's been quite a while now, but Journey, we partnered with a company called Simple and about 100 other consultants, and I became a Simple AI transformation expert. I spent a lot of time on using AI in our business, but also in our clients' businesses. So I'm also a project management professional, a PMP. As I mentioned, I have 20 years of IT leadership experience, and I'm a business advisor and executive coach. Simple is a consortium, if you will, of over 100 people, experts now on AI. They got together a couple years ago. The marketplace was clamoring for more information, more knowledge, and we spent a lot of time developing some of the content developing quite a bit of content, some of which is part of our training course, and then there's other content as well. So developed really at the behest of our clients, right? Like, what is it they needed to know? What were they asking for? What did they want to know? And so that's where all this content comes from. It's just us researching and building out content based on the desires of the community. Okay. When we talk about AI, right, the big question, right, like everyone's kind of like, is, often with technology, you don't want to be on the cutting edge because it can be painful if you're too early. The interesting thing with AI is it's fairly, at this point, it's established itself. It's not a fad, right? Like you can be sure that this is not a fad. It has exploded across all industries, within small and large businesses alike, and it's coming, whether you like it or not, right? Like it's AI is actually a very the term itself was coined over 50 years ago. Um, so the field of study, if you will, is very old. It's just the recent commercialization success, specifically of ChatGPT, that has put it in the mainstream. So um, my argument to you on AI would be it's coming whether you're ready or not. So um, why not get involved now, learn what you can, and be a trusted guide who builds AI readiness within your organization versus doing it later and just be trying to catch up to everyone else who decided to kind of do it sooner. So I think at this point it's fairly well it's established enough that if you haven't already, it's time to get your knowledge level up so that you can use it effectively and also advocate for it effectively within your business. So let's talk a little bit about AI from a high level. Um, so most of our technology we think of as a tool, and you use it in the right situation, and you need to just understand the right situation. And you know how to use it. But AI isn't just a tool. AI is also a collaborator. Um, it you really just have to experience it to really appreciate it. But it can help you brainstorm. It can give you options. It cannot replace you as a thinker. It cannot replace you um, as a quality control expert, but it can actually become a trusted partner, right? So I would encourage you to think of it not just as a tool, but also as a collaborator. The more you interact with it, I think the more you'll appreciate that statement. Within AI, most of everything we do within generative AI, right, is done via prompts, and you can talk to it like normal, and you're gonna get good results. But if you want great results, you need to learn how to prompt it with great prompts. So if you're just looking for average results, or you're looking for quick tactical improvements in your day, you can accomplish that without really spending much time learning how to prompt well. But when you're looking for repeatable, structured processes that you can kind of um, package and hand to other people, you need to know how to prompt and how to write something that creates a repeatable output. When you're using AI, you're not outsourcing thinking. You're really not. You're in the same way that for a builder, right? A nail gun allows you to hammer in nails. You're not hammering them anymore, but allows you to put nails in place much faster. AI allows you to generate ideas to think faster, but it allows you to think faster. It doesn't think for you, right? It allows you to come up with a set of options quicker. It allows you to it does some of the heavy lifting. It does some of the nuisance tasks of thinking, if you will, but you're still in the driver's seat. So think of it as, you don't want to outsource your thinking. You're not outsourcing your thinking, but you're amplifying it. And I mean, this seems almost cliche, but the cold hard reality with AI is asking better questions, asking them in the right way is going to get you better answers, right? And that might be by including the right amount of context. It might be by using the right model, right? But asking the right questions in the right ways is going to get you better answers. The last thing I want to hit on here is, as I mentioned, AI is not a replacement for you. I've said this a bunch of times. AI is not going to take your job, not anytime soon. It's the person who knows how to use AI that's going to take your job. And you really need to keep that in mind. Somebody that is an absolute expert in AI and knows how to write not just a good prompt, but knows how to build out AI agents, which is going to be it's just becoming a thing right now. They have the potential to work at 5, 6, 7 times, maybe even 10 times the pace that most of us can work at. They can accomplish amazing things. And I think that's really what you need to think about it as. It's really that person that knows how to use AI really, really well. That is potentially the threat to you. So I would encourage you to get on the front end of this and learn how to use AI to improve your own skill set and improve the skill sets of those around you. I want to give you a quick tour of the training, of the structure of the training we offer. Okay. So we start, it's in a belt structure with 8 belts. And we start at the basics, right? Understanding what's possible. We start with different modalities that you can query with. We start at a very rudimentary level. For some of you, it may be too rudimentary, but almost everyone that has been through this first class, no matter how knowledgeable they are about AI, they took something away, right? So this is just, we want to build a good foundation that we can kind of layer on top of here. So the first class, super base level, dealing with tools, dealing with modalities, and building on top of that. And from there, we move into the yellow belt. We get into very tactical ways that you can use AI in your role that can start to save you time every day, right? So again, still at the basics, but we'll talk about a variety of ways that you can use AI in your daily role to improve how you function. From there, we'll touch on how we can use AI as a cognitive super assistant. And really, this is being able to access expert knowledge via AI. This is a really good class. This is where you really start to reap value. A lot of people that have been through this training, they almost immediately started to see real value coming out of Orange. Out of Yellow, they're like, okay, I found like 4 or 5 additional things I can use AI for each day. But coming out of Orange, they start to really understand the value of AI and how it can help them tackle challenges that they did not feel capable of tackling before. From there, we'll get into Greenbelt, which is building AI tools. So we'll talk about and get into the details of building out what ChatGPT calls a GPT. In Copilot, it's called Copilot Studio. And Google Gemini, it's called a Gem. So we'll talk about how to build out tools within AI. And the Blue Belt, we start looking at how do we build 100x improvements in processes? How do we make a process that used to take 1,000 minutes take 10 minutes? And we'll look at giving you the skill set to be able to go out and do that, and to build out something that can accomplish a task, a process, if you will, 100 times faster than before. And then we start looking at how do we take those same processes and make them repeatable and usable across an organization, across your role, so that you can use them over and over again and other people in your role can use them over and over again. So taking those tools and combining them in such a way that they can be used across your role. Next step after that is really starting to look at the concepts needed to imagine AI, as I was speaking to earlier, to be able to use AI agents and start thinking of yourself as a manager of AIs, right? How do you leverage AIs to accomplish whole jobs, right? Entire roles or portions of roles. And so giving you the concepts and the tools so that you can start thinking about and acting in that way. And then the black belt is really more about legacy, if you will. It's like, how are you going to take what you've learned and mentor others through the process, encapsulate the information, the knowledge you've learned, and pass it on to others, and impact, and turn it into something that others can also learn from and use. So that's the 8 belts. Generally, it's presented over 12 weeks, and it's the first 5 weeks are 1 class per week. The last from blue through black, the work gets a little bit more challenging, so we like to go 2 weeks between each course so that you have an opportunity to really do something, go and actually use it in your business in a meaningful way, in your role in a meaningful way. So it's 1 course a week for 5 weeks, and then we take a week off between blue and purple and brown and brown and black. Okay. Courses are generally 60 to 90 minutes in length, depending on how many questions there are. I will always stay the full time and make sure that people get get all their questions answered. So we try to spend as much time as we can. Here's some feedback we've gotten from people that have been through the course. I think in a general sense, they start to, as I mentioned, they start to really feel the value around the third week. Others have felt the value much sooner. And then we continue to layer on top of that. So that's the course. I don't want to belabor that. I just wanted to make sure that we passed on that information. And here, I'm going to give you a quick overview of AI. We're going to talk about a variety of topics around AI so you have a better understanding of what it is, what's available out there, and then we'll have questions. So we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. So when we talk about what is AI, AI stands for artificial intelligence. You'll also hear to it referred as large language models, which is a specific type of AI. There are other types, one called machine learning. Fundamentally, at the core, these are all statistical models, right? And all they're doing, generative AI or large language models, all they're doing is predicting the word that will come next based on the situation you presented the model with. Now, it's not like they just predict one word though, right? Like they're predicting based off billions and billions of data points. So the question you posed, the context that the model has available, other questions you've asked in the past, all of this is available to the model and affecting how it answers you. So it has billions of data points that go into what it gives back to you, but ultimately it's just math. This can be evidenced by, like, there's a few situations where it can really be evidenced that it's not actually thinking, because there's just a couple things that you'll notice, like that it can't tell you. I'm trying to think of a good example. It doesn't know where the limits of its knowledge are, right? Because it doesn't actually have knowledge. So it's not really good at telling you, I don't know, which is interesting, right? Which is something humans are pretty good at. We know pretty quickly when we're in a kind of an area that's not our own domain knowledge. And that's kind of what, when people talk about, I don't have a slide on this, but people talk about AI hallucinating. That's what they're talking about, is where AI kind of speculates a little bit more than it should. I can tell you that they have hallucinations were a really big problem a year and a half ago. It was something happening, maybe 10% of the time. Now we're talking about well less than 1% of the time, or you're starting to see hallucinations. So you have, if you just ask the same question twice, if you get different answers and they're not even related to each other, maybe you ask a third time. But often you can also just ask it to validate the answer it gave you, and it'll tell you if the answer is true or not. So it doesn't even have a bias towards its own answers. It doesn't know that you're asking it, basically, if it gave you a false information or anything. So from that standpoint, like I said, it's just math. Can it make mistakes? Yes. But the percentage chance of mistakes has really, really come down over the last couple of years. I want to talk about the two largest types of AI. First of all, like I said, AI is actually, the math to do this is actually, the concept's like 50 years old. The capability of managing the math required at billions of data points is what's new. Right? So that's what has happened with the advent of these extremely powerful GPUs. A GPU is a graphical processing unit, historically used to put pictures on your computer screens, right? To create the images in games. It was definitely GPU capabilities were definitely being pushed forward by games predominantly. And GPUs are CPUs, right? They're computer CPUs, but they're especially focused on mathematical capabilities, right? They're especially focused on being able to do math problems at scale, at very large scale. And so as GPUs got powerful and powerful, it became easier and easier to tackle some tasks within AI. So within machine learning, right, you have this concept of, I would say, the overriding difference between machine learning and large language models. So ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, these are all large language models. And machine learning is something you don't really hear much about, but it's what your IT departments have historically been doing when they've been working with AI. So machine learning really, it's really looking for patterns within numbers. It can be also applied to pictures, but historically what it's primarily been used for is patterns within numbers, right? It's pattern matching. The data that it takes to establish machine learning is really well-structured data, right? In nice organized tables, it knows what each number represents. It's getting sensor data. It might be some streaming type data. It could be photos as well, but it's very it's predetermined types of data. Okay, it is historically what we found it's best at is predicting sales. It can take historical performance and look forward and predict future performance. It can spot outliers, right? So it's good at spotting fraud in a stream of transactions. It's good at identifying the ones that are the most likely to be fraud. It's good at bucketing things like photos, right? So give it a bunch of photos. If you train it on a bunch of photos of animals and tell it which animals in each photo, it could then go look at another photo and tell you the likelihood that a dog is in the photo. It can tell you with high confidence what's in the photo. If you train it on just animals, though, and then there's a picture of a building in a photo, it's not likely to know that it's a building. Okay. It doesn't just struggle with, it can't answer open-ended questions. It can't respond to open-ended conversations. If you present it with a new task without training it on the task, it will fail. Okay. ML can run on a very small device. It can run on your mobile phone. It can run on a laptop. Super inexpensive to train and use. It can be trained in minutes, hours, I would say days at the very outside on very large data sets. And it's really easy to understand why it made a choice, right? Which numbers caused it to say it had this confidence. So we're using ML when we have structured data, we have discrete tasks, and we want traceability. We want to know why it made a choice. Okay. So again, problems that are very distinct problems that candidly humans could solve given enough time and energy. ML can solve in minutes instead of humans taking weeks and months to solve. Okay. When you look at large language models, they are trained on vast amounts of information. Okay. Mostly on things like the internet, right? Think about it as being trained on every website on the internet, all the pages on Reddit, all the forum posts across, Facebook, and all, like, it's trained on immense amounts of data, all published papers, all books ever written. So like the amounts of data we're talking about being trained on are massive, right? So your typical data is collections of books. I wouldn't just say websites, I would say the internet, but other texts. They're really good at, with a wrapper, with a GPT across the top, they can be good at chatting. We can feed it information and have it summarize them. We can have it write stories. Interestingly, there's so much computer code that has been published and written about that they're very good at writing code and at reading code. And also they're very good at translating languages. I would also offer they're actually really good at interpreting, which is different than translating in the sense that interpreting is trying to, when is conveying the concept as opposed to just the words, right? So translating is translating the word from one language to another. This word means this, whereas interpreting is, well, the person was actually trying to say this. So they used an idiom or they used a simile or a metaphor. And so what they were trying to actually convey was this concept. That's what an interpreter does. Whereas translating is like, these are the words they used, which is why some things are lost in translation. When we use idioms, I use them all the time. It's a really bad habit. When we use idioms, they don't translate well. because they just don't. The break of dawn, that's an idiom, right? Dawn doesn't actually break, but we think it does in English. Well, when you translate that to other languages, they don't understand what the break of dawn is because they don't say that in their language. So interestingly, computer code is a language, so they're very good at translating computer languages also to and from English, to and from other languages. So that's one of the strengths over here. It struggles with knowing where the end of its knowledge is, and so it hallucinates. It also can be biased, I would argue, unscientifically, with no actual basis in in data, that bias is probably based on biases that were baked in what it was trained on. So if it's a bias that's baked into predominantly English speakers, then that bias is also going to appear in the LLMs that's trained on that data. It's kind of a logical thing if you think it makes sense. LLMs, believe it or not, require a large amount of computer processing power and electricity. So it's definitely one of the weaknesses here. From a cost standpoint, you need big GPUs, you need a lot of them, you need immense training data. It is exorbitantly expensive, well past $1 million to train a model one time, right? So this is not something that's available to the average person. Whereas the average person, if they know what they're doing, they could train an ML model and get good results on a particular data set. This is why you see only the largest of companies publishing their own models, is because these models are extremely expensive to train. Getting less expensive, but still very expensive. So this is the interesting part, though, because it's billions and billions of kind of bits of math, it's harder to explain why it made the choice it did. They're getting better at this because they're baking it into some of the models so that they have to be able to explain why they make the choices they make. But this is a challenge for LLMs, which also means it's a challenge for fields that are highly regulated. It's a challenge for fields that need to be auditable, because the audit trails sometimes don't exist. So why we made that choice is sometimes what needs to be audited. And if you don't have an audit trail that says why that choice was made, it can be a challenge for those industries. So keep that in mind, something to be aware of in some industries. So it's good at being creative, and it's good at conversation. It's good at really broad knowledge. It's good at unstructured data, right? So when you're trying to analyze unstructured data, large language models can help. I recently ran some queries against conversations I'd had over a series of meetings, about 9 hours of transcripts, 9 hours of voice that was turned into transcripts. And it did a fantastic job extracting exactly what I wanted in minutes, right? It would have taken me weeks to do, maybe not weeks, but at least 10 hours, right? Did it in minutes. So definitely some different use cases. And this just, when you hear AI, like right now, a lot of people associate AI with LLMs, but there is this other aspect of AI, and they're not the same, and they're different enough that you should be aware. If you are in an industry trying to figure out how much of what ingredient to order, you probably have an ML problem, right? You probably have a problem best solved with ML. The difference is you need some very technical people to implement a solution here. If you are trying to, summarize meeting data, or summarize large sets of unstructured data, or look for trends within, large sets of unstructured data, you have an LLM problem. And believe it or not, you don't need to be as technical to solve it. So different types of AI for different use cases. So again, if you have a question, please put it in chat. I will do my best to answer it. I know that some of the information we're tackling here is a little bit dense. And so if there's questions, please pop them in and I will do what I can. This is a list, a table of AI models available from only a few. This is just 3 vendors, and this is not all of their models. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is a sampling. OpenAI itself has like 10 different models. Google has 4 or 5. I'm not even sure how many Anthropic has. I think at least 4 or 5. There are other model makers as well. X has Grok. There's a bunch of Chinese model makers that we don't use as much in the US, but there are a lot of different model vendors around the world. This is a sampling of their models, right? So there's a bunch of vendors, and this is a sampling of their models. I'm not going to read through these, but I will touch on a few of them that I use a lot. I predominantly use ChatGPT, although I maintain familiarity with others. 4.0 is the base model within ChatGPT. It's the one you get unlimited access to when you have, I think even a free account has unlimited access now. When you have a paid account, you definitely have unlimited access to 4.0. It's very fast, very human-like. It's multimodal. It can handle text, images, audio. It gives responses almost immediately, near real time, and it's good for a variety of things. It at very complex, very complicated tasks, it may miss the mark. Okay. And it is a direct model, meaning that you give it a prompt and it gives you a response. It doesn't pre-process your prompt in any way. It does add additional context, but it doesn't reason. We'll talk about reasoning a bit more here. GPT 4.0 Mini, right, is this is a reasoning model. It is really, really fast. But what I mean by reasoning is that it thinks about what you are trying to ask. So it pre-processes your prompt and says, hey, what is the user actually trying to ask? And then it kind of refactors your prompt and maybe runs a few different prompts through the system to get you exactly what it thinks you're asking, right? This is the same thing humans do. When someone asks you a question and we don't think about that we do it, but often you can have the literal meaning, right, of the question, and then you can have some other potentially implied questions, and you process through what are they really asking me, and then it's going you respond accordingly. Interestingly, you'll notice that people do this in varying amounts. I am very literal. It's I don't know. You could call it a plus. You can call it a minus. If somebody asks me a question, I'm pretty likely to give them the literal answer. Some people, it drives them nuts because I miss some of the nuances of what people are asking sometimes. Other people speak in flowery, broad statements, and they're not very literal. And so you have to kind of interpret what they're saying before you respond, right? So in essence, 4.0 is going to deal well with that because it's going to reason through what it needs to say. ChatGPT 0.3 is probably, I would say, the highest capability and model that's available for regular use, right? So as a free user, you get some number of ChatGPT, you get some number of 0.3 responses per week, but not an unlimited number. It's going to do chain of thought. It's going to do reasoning, really robust model. It's going to give you a really robust answer. And then it's got a variety of reasoning levels depending on the type of question you asked and what it thinks, how long it thinks you're willing to wait for the answer. You ask a huge, complicated question, it thinks you're going to wait longer it'll think you're willing to wait longer for the answer. So it'll act accordingly, right? It's higher cost. It's a bit slower, right? So these are fast models. This is a medium model. If it really wants to perform well, it needs to think longer. And occasionally it will, this is just kind of a known thing. It on some content types are considered sensitive, right? There's things you can't ask AIs to do. I'm not going to get into it, but like there's obvious things that if you ask it on some sensitive topics, it won't respond. And sometimes it over refuses because it's overthinking, right? So I tend to use, I use a lot of O3. This is a really good model, in my opinion, and it does a really good job giving out, uh, um, asking on the more complicated topics, and that tends to be what I'm using AI more for. If I need a conversational AI, I'm definitely using 4.0, right? I use it, believe it or not, I use it to help me cook in the kitchen, and when I'm doing that, I'm using 4.0 because I want quick responses. I'm probably talking to it, and my hands are dirty. So, but when I'm doing technical stuff, I'm definitely using O3 more often than not. Recently released, like in the last couple weeks, is O3 Pro. This is the top tier, most accurate science, programming, data analysis, writing model that ChatGPT has available, that OpenAI has available. The problem is it is slow, like really slow, and it requires a lot of context. So if you're writing prompts that are less than pages long, this is not the right model for you. It's here because it is the most capable model available right now. It was released recently, and it kind of leapfrogged OpenAI back into the front. But my gosh, it's slow. It's ask something and go have lunch slow. Sometimes it will take 30 minutes to get a response. So it's obviously not usable in a lot of use cases, but there are some specific use cases where it will do a very good job. Google Gemini has, so 2.5 Pro is their code. It's like their prompt or their model that's very good at coding, really good at research. So you've got, it can also do multimodal image, text, video, and it has a huge memory, 1 million tokens. 1 million tokens, from a context standpoint, 1 million tokens is about 750,000 words. 750,000 words is the length of a very, very long book, something on the scale of the Bible, right? So this is an enormous amount of memory that's available to it, and it's still very fast and it's very accurate. It's a little bit robotic, but and then another model maker is called Anthropic. They make a model called Claude, which is also a very powerful coding model. That's really what their focus has been, but it's still very usable in a lot of cases. It's a reasoning model as well. So Claude 4 Opus is the model, and Claude 4 Sonnet. They're both reasonably really good models. I would put these on par with O3. Some of this stuff is stylistic choice. So with a ChatGPT subscription, you get access to these models up here at the top. Like with a Google Workspace subscription, you get access to Gemini. And with an Anthropic subscription, you get access to Claude. And I think you have free access to all of them at some level. So again, I know this is a dense slide, but I think this is really good content. I'm going to move on because I went from being very far ahead to being quite a bit behind now. So pick a model based on what you need, right? Cost is always a concern. The quality of the output's a concern. Speed should be a concern as well. So what do you need it to do? And what price point can you, which one is there an ROI at? Test it with your own tasks. One model might be good at one thing, another for something else. And so where people are being able to monetize LLMs really well is by using each model for what it's best at and combining them into different combinations to create kind of new options that exist in the marketplace. So that's what a lot of these AI-based services are doing. They don't have their own AI. They're using these AIs available from these major model makers, and they're combining them in novel ways to create a product that you want to purchase or are willing to purchase. So always be on the lookout for hallucinations. It's not as much of a concern, but it's something to be aware of. And by going through and using AI a lot, it becomes easier for you to spot. So always be a little bit suspicious, though, specifically when you're operating outside of your own personal area of expertise. I'm going to run through some of the settings in ChatGPT because I think this is pretty valuable information for you. And because a lot of people don't, there's one particular setting I think is important to touch on for everyone. This is the standard interface. If you log into ChatGPT, I'm logged in right now. If you're logged in, this is what the interface looks like. You enter prompts here. You ask whatever you want. I'm not going to really sample any prompts right now, but down here, if you want to add photos and files, you can add things directly from an app. I have my OneDrive synced up, so I can pull that. I can also, these are specific tools, right? I can tell it to create an image. I can also just tell it, please create an image. I can tell it to search the web. I can also tell it to search the web, right? So you get the idea. So you can use these tools if you feel like using these tools. The only one that I think you probably need to click on if you really want it to work is Deep Research. And Deep Research is basically giving the model permission to go and spend a lot of time doing something, like 30 minutes, right? So, hey, I want you to go and do deep research. I want you to go and look at 100 different websites. I want you to go and really dig into this topic and come back and give me an answer. Additionally, I'm okay, in my case, because I have it integrated with all these things, I'm okay with you looking at my calendar. I'm okay with you reading through my email. You can access all of my Teams messages, my Teams chats. You can look through our HubSpot at our CRM. You can web search, right? So when I go into deep research mode, I can have it access all sorts of things and consolidate a bunch of information and write me a report. Deep research is not going to give you an answer. It's going to write you a research report. So think about it that way. If you're looking for a 4-page research report on the weather and the weather trends over the past 50 years in the Florida area, that's the thing. That's the kind of thing that deep research will write you on. So just kind of keep that in mind. It can be really powerful. You need to know how to write. I think it's a good idea to know how to write a deep research prompt well. One of the ways of writing a deep research prompt well is by asking for, please write me a deep research prompt for the following, and it will help you write out the prompt. So Canvas mode is a mode within ChatGPT where you can have a file side by side. You don't have a switch to get there. I'm not even sure if I can do it this way now that I think about it. Let's see. So this is Canvas mode. Now I've got this document and I can co-author this. I'm not writing a prompt now. I'm writing a document. Right. So over here, I'm writing a document, and over here, I'm prompting. So I'm having a chat on the left side, and I'm writing a document or a spreadsheet on the right side. So this is called Canvas mode. You end up in it occasionally without trying, which can be a nuisance if you don't know what it is. But if you're working on a legal document, it's great because the whole document is here. You can make edits, and then you can come back over here and have ChatGPT also make edits. So outside of this, back to the standard interface, right? If I'm here and I click here, I go back into Canvas mode. See, it says open in Canvas. So also you have what's called GPTs, right? So if I come, actually, I got to come over here. If I open my sideboard, I can go to GPTs. And there are a bunch of publicly available GPTs available that have been published. I've published a few. There are these are published by a bunch of people, right? These are published by ChatGPT. You get the idea. There's a lot of them here. You can look for a GPT is basically a prompt that's a significant prompt, something like multiple page prompt that's been packaged in such a way to deliver something, right? So you can send somebody a link to a GPT. They can't look inside it. They can't see what the prompt is, but they can use the GPT. Okay. So in that case, it can be really useful for packaging up AI, if you will. So it's useful. You can send it off to someone who doesn't have a ChatGPT account. You can send it to somebody who doesn't work for your company. It's a really good way of packaging things up, specifically if you're sending them to a different company, right? Or if you don't want to use them outside your account. One way to package things up within your own account, though, is by using projects. So I can start a project. I'll say test project, right? And I create a project here. And so within a project, I can have custom instructions that are extra context that operates within the background of the project. These are think of this as included with every prompt you make is this additional information. You can add files to the project, which are available whenever you're prompting within the project. So in my case, I actually use projects sometimes on a per client basis, sometimes on whatever I'm working on with a client. And so I keep files related to that within ChatGPT so that I can query them. So I have dropped in all my project documents so I'm a project manager, right? So I have dropped in all the documents related to a project I'm working on into ChatGPT, into a project. And I've said, including the statement of work. And I said, hey, where are we at on getting to milestone 2? And it gives me back, an output saying, this is where we are on getting to milestone 2. So I think that's a way you can kind of interact with and query documents and files. Okay. Believe it or not, you have this capability in ChatGPT to have it send you a reminder. It used to be you had to be in a specific place, but now it has this concept of tasks, and you can say, "Hey, can you remind me to check the weather at 4 p.m.?" And I submit this, and in this case, I don't know why, but it refused. But I just did it yesterday and it didn't refuse. So maybe instead of can, I'm going to rewrite this prompt because I asked it if it could. And instead of asking, I'm just going to tell it to. I find that really odd. It worked yesterday. So this was native just yesterday and has been native before. You could tell it to remind you and it would send you an email. I got one this morning, in fact. So very odd that it's telling me it can't do it, but it could do it yesterday. So I'm not sure what happened there, but that's a newer feature. They made it native, supposedly, just not on Fridays at 1 p.m. This is something I definitely wanted to go into is in these settings. This is the setting I think most people aren't aware of, but I think this is not the place to get it. Sorry. Here. I think you need to be really, like, when you set up your ChatGPT account the first time, there's a bunch of settings here. You can go in. They're fairly straightforward, most of them, right? Auto detect language. Right? I mean, you can say auto detect. I have mine set to auto detect. You can set it to your native language. Specifically, I would say if you speak a language, it's not easy to differentiate. There's two dialects of it, and it's not easy to differentiate between the two. It might help. But so you have settings like that. Archive chats, I can click manage, and I can archive a bunch of chats. It keeps a history of your chats over here. You can see my history is quite long. It just goes on and on and on. So you can archive off all your chats if you choose. You can manage your archive chats and bring some of them back. You can delete all your chats if you choose. Okay. So interestingly, it says it will. It says it will email me about tasks, but it refused to do it. So that's kind of funny. And then you can personalize ChatGPT in a bunch of ways. So you can add customization instructions. So my name's Mark. So I told it to call me Mark, right? I'm a partner in business, father, dad, husband. I manage 2 golden doodles, right? So this is just like some extra context that it knows about me. And then how I want ChatGPT to ask. I've got its tone, its detail level, its amount of humor. I want it to be accurate versus being cordial. I don't care if it's nice to me, right? Is it okay if it clarifies? And what should do when it's unsure? I chose all these topics. I actually chose these topics by having it ask me a bunch of questions, but this is how my ChatGPT acts toward me. You can set yours to act however you choose to have it act toward you. And then you can add additional context about yourself. So this is called personalizing ChatGPT, if you will. And then all new chats will automatically have this information kind of embedded, and it'll respond accordingly. And then these are capabilities. I have everything turned on. I think you would want the same, right? But if you want it to be able to web search, right, check this. If you want to write code, if you want it to be able to use, if you hate Canvas mode, turn it off. It will never go into Canvas mode, right? So, and you want to allow it to use voice. This is awesome on a mobile device, right? You can drive around and have a conversation with ChatGPT on your mobile device. And it's a really great way to get some work done while you're driving. So that's kind of your custom instructions. There's another way there. You can come here and do personalized. You get the same exact panel. Okay. The setting that I want to jump to, though, is this data controls, right? And it's got this first setting right here: improve the model for everyone. Innocuous enough. Of course, I want to help everyone. Be careful, right? Allow your content to be used to train our models. I would argue that if you're using anything that is your intellectual property, that is not public information, financial statements, anything like that, you want to be able to feed it in the ChatGPT, turn this setting off. I would argue that you should turn this setting off if you aren't even sure, right? We're paying for this service. I don't need to help them train their models. They can figure that on their own. I'm a big advocate for AI, but you need to be able to create some confidentiality if you want to use it around your business, you want to have the ability to be have things be confidential. So I would encourage you to check this setting, and if you aren't sure, turn it off. So you can manage shared links. You can actually share a chat with somebody, and then they can take it from there. So, and here it's going to show me these are all these chats I've sent out to people, right? And if you have a personal account and you fire up a business account, you can merge in your data from your personal account into your business account. This is my, if I fire up a GPT, these are the settings that apply to my GPTs. Okay. So that's as a builder, as a GPT builder, if you will. And then connectors. These are all the things that I've basically turned on to connect ChatGPT to. You can connect other items, but you can also create your own connector, believe it or not. So if you have something called an MCP server, which is a new type of integration server specifically for AI, you can allow ChatGPT to access whatever content you choose. So not for the faint of heart, it's technical in nature, but if you're wondering, could I query this data in ChatGPT? The answer is yes, if you had somebody, technical enough to create an MCP server to access that data for you. So if it's a business project, we're doing that, then the answer is yes. You just got to figure out how to do it. Okay. Secure sign in, right? These are just all my phone is also signed in. You can see your other sign in. Then you got some security settings, multi-factor authentication. I should probably turn mine on since I'm online doing webinars all the time. I think the only thing I skipped was speech, right? So you decide what language you want. There's a bunch of different voices. What voice do you want it to choose? What language? So you get the idea. We have about 5 minutes left. So if there's any questions, please ask them. I should have been a Q&A by now. I'm not going to get to a bunch of different prompts to try. Actually, I'll hit on that slide. And then we'll wrap. If there's questions, though, please type them in, and I will do my best to answer them before we run out of time. I hope this has been informative. Some other prompt types to try, right? These are powerful prompt types, if you will. Standard this is what most of us are doing all the time. Explain this, do this, right? It's just a direct instruction, right? Use your standard prompt. A role-based prompt. Tell ChatGPT who to be, right? You are a friendly math tutor. You are an expert mechanic. You are an expert German auto mechanic, right? You will get better and better responses as you give it a role that's more and more narrow, okay? You can do a few shot example prompt, which is, hey, you give it like question answer. So you give it a question and an answer. Maybe you're giving it samples, right? Sample questions with the associated answer. And then in the third, fourth, or fifth, you just give it the question. And so what it looks at the pattern that you're establishing with the previous ones and saying, so it's kind of like doing a metaphor, you know, if Apple was to fall and I don't know, and balloon is to rise, then, you know, you're basically saying, and then you put a third option and it will figure out like what's the most likely answer to that. So it can be really powerful in some situations. It copies your pattern and it allows you to kind of, it's going to also copy your style as well. Chain of thought is tell it to think step by step and reason. You can tell it to kind of reason through something. This was really, really important before reasoning models became a thing. People used to do this all the time. And so I think this still has, you can have it break a problem into smaller steps. Okay. I paused because I saw a question come up. There is something, and I'm on actually a ChatGPT team account. And so being that is the type of account that we're using here, what that is it's a company managed account. I can allocate out user accounts to people within my company, and we can share things within our company. But I also get to manage all their settings. So I get to say that their training data setting is turned off. So I think that is worthwhile. But I also get to set up connectors at a company level So this is where our company's Teams account is, things like that. So it does give you centralized control over a variety of people's ChatGPT accounts. It is about the same price. It might be a few dollars more than a ChatGPT Plus account. It does not include the features from a ChatGPT Pro account, though. Okay, the Pro account includes some super high-end features like Operator, which is an AI agent kind of in the browser that you can tell it to go and book a flight for you and things like that. So it hasn't really caught on in a big way that I can tell. But you probably also get priority access to prompts and other stuff when you have a Pro account. Priority access to resources, excuse me. So anyway, I covered a ton of content. I hope you found this valuable. Kind of to bring it all together. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. And I'm going to finish with kind of a story, if you will. So imagine it's like the early 90s, right? You run a business, you've got 40 or 50 employees, and this new thing hits the market. It's the multimedia computer, right? It can do all these things: write documents, send messages, eventually it'll be able to access the internet. You may or may not know that yet, right? But it's like a typewriter, but it's got a screen on it, super cool, has all these capabilities. And you buy one for everyone, and they start using it like a word processor. So they're using it as a beefed up typewriter. Meanwhile, your competitor down the street cuts, their staff in half, right? You think they're in trouble, but then they start poaching your best employees, right? And then a few months later, their prices drop. And not only are they not in trouble, but now you are. They blindsided you, right? And you call a team meeting, you're trying to figure out how are they offering the same services we are at 80% of the price. Well, what you didn't realize is not only you bought everyone a computer, but what they did is they went out and they bought everyone a computer. They trained everyone on it, and they transformed how they did business, right? They didn't just get the new resource, get the cool, shiny new thing, but they figured out how to integrate it at the core of their business and transform the way they do business. This is essentially the backbone of what people used to call digital transformation with businesses. And it is how a lot of businesses leapfrogged over others. And I would argue the same thing is happening right now with AI. So don't just start using AI. Figure out how to use it at a very high level and start to integrate it into the core of your business. Figure out how it can make you more efficient, how it can deliver services faster before your competitors do. So, and with that, I will continue to answer questions. We'll stay on for a few minutes, even though we're over. If you have more questions, you want to talk more about the training, you want to talk more about anything AI related, please book some time with me, scan this QR code, get in touch with us, and let's talk. So I hope you found today valuable. And if you have any feedback, if you want to send it privately, please feel free to do so. My email's right there. You can send it on LinkedIn as well, or you're welcome to drop it in chat. Thanks for your time, everyone.